Alright, today we're going to look at operations with complex numbers. So we have I to the 33rd equals what? Remember, you got to do your math, number 3, I part, type in your I, second decimal, all that stuff, and you get I to the 33rd just equals I. Let's take a look at number 2. We have 3i squared plus 7i. That should be to the 12th. It'll be good on your paper. So we have 3 times -1 because I squared is -1. 7i to the 12th. I to the 12th is just 1, so you get plus 7. And I to the third is -I. So we have -3 plus 7 minus I. And we have 4 minus I. Alright, number 3. We got our 3 halves here. Just carry that down. We have our negative under the radical, so let's bring our I out. And now we just need to simplify rad 72, which becomes rad 36, rad 2. So we get 3 halves I times 6 times rad 2. 3 halves I times 6 is 9i rad 2. Alright, so let's talk about complex numbers. What is a complex number? It's written as A plus BI. So A is your real number, and BI is your imaginary number. And you can write any number, real or not, as in this form. So if we took the number 4, you would just write it as 4 plus 0i. That's how you'd represent it in A plus BI form, or complex number form. And if we wanted, 2i, you just write 0 plus 2i. And that would represent, the square root of -4. Alright, so let's look at adding and subtracting complex numbers. Our first step, we're going to change our radical -1 to I. Our second step is to simplify the radicals. And number 3 is to combine like terms. So if we are subtracting, don't forget to distribute the -1 out in front of the parentheses. Alright, so let's take a look at number 1. We have 3 plus rad square root of -1, so we have 3 plus I. Since it's addition, we don't need the parentheses after you do the things inside the parentheses, plus 4. Remember, we have our negative, so make that an I, and we make it plus 6i. What's our next step? Combine like terms. We have 7 plus 7i. I. Alright, here we have 5 minus square root of 128 minus negative 8 minus square root of 98. So we'll start with the first one. We have 5 minus, remember, factor out the I under the negative, and the square root of 128 is square root of 128 simplifies to 64, 4, and rad 2. So you get 8 here times 8 rad 2. So down here we have 5 minus 8I radical 2. And we're minusing. We have our negative 8 minus rad 98, which comes to rad 49 rad 2. We know radical 49 is 7I rad 2, because it can't be done anymore. Distribute our negative, so we're left with 5 minus 8I radical 2 plus 8 plus 7I radical 2. And if you notice here, we have 8I rad 2, 7I rad 2. We can combine like terms. So let's first, 5 plus 8 is 13, and minus I radical 2, because negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1, so we have negative I rad 2. Alright, when multiplying complex numbers, the examples are on the back, but we'll go through the rules right now. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to change our square root of negative 1 to I and simplify the radical. We're going to distribute. And 3 is to simplify. So turn it over and we'll take a look at some problems. Alright, so for example 1, look at that, no radicals. So we just go straight into distribute, and you get 12 minus 8I, and we're done. That's all there is to it. If there's no radical, we don't have to simplify. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Alright, but example number 2, we gotta look at over here. So we have 5, right? We have plus radical plus the square root of negative 25, which we now know is plus 5I. Put that in parentheses. We have 2 minus the square root of negative 9, which is 3I. Now we distribute out. You get 10 minus 15I plus 10I minus 15I squared. We know that I squared is negative 1, so this becomes a plus 15. We'll combine like terms in the middle. We have minus 5I, and we have 10, and we end up with, combining like terms, 25 minus 5 I. Alright, so where it says dividing complex numbers, let's just write our steps here. Change our square root of negative 1 to I. Divide our coefficients and radicals. And then we simplify. So let's take a look at example 1. So we have, remember, change our negative square root of 1 to I. So we have I radical 50 over I radical 2, or divided by. I's divided cancel. We're going to divide our rad 50 by rad 2, and we get square root of 25, and we know that equals 5. Alright, so we have in example 2, 4 minus 6I over 2. Make our little heart here, and you're left with 2 minus 3I, because remember, this number, the denominator has to go into everything in the numerator, otherwise you can't reduce. And our example 3, we'll just reduce here, take our heart. Remember, dividing exponents, you subtract, so you get 2I squared minus 12I squared divided by 4I squared is minus 3. We know I squared is negative 1, so it's 2 times negative 1 minus 3. You get negative 2 minus 3. We get negative 5. And let's just practice writing it in a plus bi form, so plus 0I. Alright, have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow in class.